it's more short-handed, obviously you're playing more hands. I mean, it's still just as relevant when people fold earlier in full ring, but you have to play a lot of hands in the blinds, specifically. If it folds to the small blind, you still have to play a lot of hands. You have to play over half your hands, actually. Although one thing actually that does happen in tournaments, that's actually different from short-handed cash game, is that in tournaments or in 3 or 4-handed, sometimes ICM matters a ton in the late stage of tournaments. So actually you can end up playing either really loose or really tight depending on stack sizes and stuff like that. So I think that's actually more important than like how much looser you should play because you're playing 4-handed than, yeah, I just think the ICM matters more. What it means is basically your stack size and how much your chips are worth in the tournament, which is not like related linearly like it is in a cash game. Like in a cash game, if you have like $10,000 on the table, you have $10,000. But in a tournament, that's not true. In a tournament, if you're pretty short, your chips are actually worth more than what they are. Like if you figured it out compared to like the buy-in of the tournament, because you can still cash for higher than last place. So existing in the tournament matters quite a bit, and that's why play changes more and more when you're short-handed. The pay jumps affect how play matters dramatically. As an extreme example, if there are 26 players left and 25 players cash for $100,000, you really don't want to be the one that busts. Things like this matter an awful lot in tournaments. ICM is just basically a way to like, it just tries to model how much chips are worth in this like, in these situations where there are these pay jumps and where you can't rebuy, basically. Well, the chips in your hand they're not worth more, but the more chips you gain are worth less and less, actually. Unless you're playing heads up. If you're playing heads up, then ICM doesn't matter because there are only 2 people left. But if you're playing short-handed, the more and more chips you get are worth less and less. Each individual chip is worth more when you're short stack than when you're a large stack. But a large stack is quite an advantage, particularly if there's like 1 or 2 short stacks in short-handed, because the medium stacks would really not like to bust if one player is like very, very likely to bust. So a large stack can play very loosely and very aggressively against stacks that really if there's like a significant advantage, large stacks should play quite like very crazy against these players that have little choice but to like wait until like someone who's like has like 1 big blind is about to bust. So like in situations like that, you would play loosely if you're a large stack. But if you're like the medium stack in those situations, you really just want to play very, very tight and wait for like a guy who just really has very little chance of moving up to bust. Because if you bust yourself, it's a big it's quite a mistake because of how the pay jumps work.